Well, welcome to another episode of the Business is Mission podcast, and now with also our YouTube channel, you get to see us, and you can see that my guest today is Steve Rundle, Professor Emeritus at Biola University, a longtime friend, author, uh, research and experienced expert in the world of business is mission, and been wanting to have this chat for a long time. So, Steve, first of all, thanks for joining us, and welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. Sorry I overlooked it. I was looking through some old emails and it's like, uh-oh, what was it? 2 years had gone by since you first invited me. So,
And not a problem. You've been through a lot.
yeah.
You've moved. You I won't say retired because you're still teaching, but you've moved to Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
so you've had a
Yeah.
lot going on. So what are
Yeah.
you doing now? I introduced you as Professor Emeritus at Biola. I know that's accurate. You've taught in the business school
Mhm.
there for decades. You've written multiple
Mhm.
books. We'll talk about those a little bit. But what are you doing now? A lot of people know your name, but they're not sure where you are or what you're up to.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously have one class going at a time, and that's keeping me a little busy and keeping me in the game. My wife and I own some rental properties, and so we've been pouring ourselves into that. In the past, we've had managers manage a long distance, and we've been in California. Our properties are here, so now it gives us a chance to get to know the tenants and start to build relationships there, and so that's pretty fun. And just enjoying a social life that I just you know you just got neglected. uh, to my embarrassment. I mean, I just really, didn't get out much anymore. I was so busy, whether courses or books or, uh,
Your dance card has been very full, my friend. I know that.
hmm
And every time I've
hmm
seen you, it seems like you're just so busy. And so I'm glad you're it's getting to, I won't say slow down. That's not really a fair way to describe it, probably, but you're getting to a pace that maybe is a little more human
yeah,
than what you've
yeah,
had.
the
So
social, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So Steve, so go back in time. Give us a little bit of an intro to kind of your journey to Biola.
hmm
For those who listening from around the world, Biola is a major Christian university based in California. It's been around, Steve, you can tell us it's been a long, long time. A lot of wonderful teachers, a lot of wonderful graduates over the years. You guys can check it out, biola.edu. You can learn more about it. But Steve, how did you get there? What led you to start teaching business? And obviously, I'm going to very quickly go into where did you discover business's mission? Because you've been
Mm.
a major voice in the movement for several decades now. So give us just a little background, and I want to get to your thinking about what's going on today. So we're going to get there pretty
Mm.
quickly.
Uh, Boy, where would I want to start this? I joined the Marine Corps out of high school, uh, and just I didn't put any research into it. They offered me a bonus of $2,500 if I would sign up for artillery. So I learned how to shoot cannons for 6.5 years. Uh, and then after that, planted roots in California and started working in a trucking industry, not as a driver, but I was managing and ultimately managing three different companies before I realized that I'm stuck. I didn't have a college degree and all I had was artillery experience.
It
So
comes in handy if you need it, right?
yeah, yeah, 4th of July might help. But so my wife and I prayed about it and decided, I should probably get a college degree. So for me, that meant starting from scratch, the very beginning. And we were involved in our church, very active evangelical church with it had maybe about 40 different missionary units, between families and individuals and we were doing all the usual things, short-term mission trips and putting together events when they get in town and uh, mission conferences. Do you remember ACMC?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. What boy, do I ever miss those. That was really unfortunate that they had to pull the plug eventually. But yeah, what was it like twice a year they would hold a big missions event regional, so
Yeah.
probably hold
Yeah.
them all over the place. But uh, I started encountering people who were uh, doing business, dabbling in business, and in my I first started studying business, but then I fell in love with economics. So uh, I was an econ major, but I was still very interested in these business, and especially because they were very quick to say we're not in it for the money. We're not, in fact, we're not even trying to make money. And this really puzzled me. And it's like, well, who are the investors behind these things?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and so I started to really get pulled in with that, and part of it was the whole 007 intrigue of, they're not allowed in these countries, and
Hmm.
so they're spies and they're, doing this undercover work, and um, at first I thought that was going to be God's call for me, was to help these people, try to figure out business. And usually by the time I encountered them, it, it was a mess already.
It was too
Yeah.
late. Well,
Yeah.
and just to, think about this, those early days when people were using, we called it business as Visa, right?
Hmm.
They had a business, and as you say, it really wasn't a real business. I mean, kind of, but not really. And it was really an excuse to try to be somewhere legally that they couldn't be. You said 007. I started laughing because I used to call it James Bond for Jesus,
Hmm.
and as if the locals didn't understand, as if they didn't know
Yeah.
what was going on, and they did the whole time.
Yeah.
But later real business started emerging. So but
Hmm.
you're right. That was some of the early days of we want to
Yeah,
go
it
to
really was.
wherever. Yeah.
So eventually, my wife and I prayed again, talked to a lot of friends, and got counseled into going to graduate school. Decided to go ahead and pursue a PhD in economics. And by the time, well, my work in economics was a study of biotechnology partnerships, and you wouldn't think there's any connection at all with BAM. These people that come up with an idea for some sort of a cure, either a technique or a molecule or something they want to test, and it takes typically years and years and goes through lots of trials, and most of them, the vast majority of them, fail. So
Hmm.
my dissertation took a close look at how the funding works for that, and usually it's a big pharma company that comes along and either buys them out outright or helps finance the testing stages. And uh but anyway, I was asking these same questions about these businesses. Who's funding these? You're admitting you don't care about
Yeah.
the and at the time there weren't any venture capital funds in this space at all. It was angel investors really, and
Sure.
just kind-hearted people who had the means to be able to loan or just give them money to start these enterprises. But uh, by the time I graduated with the PhD, we decided we needed to go, do a nice expensive vacation. So we went to Turkey and visited three different parts of the country. We visited about 20 or so different uh, bammers of various stripes, and a lot of them of the what did you call it? Visa for Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, you know, I mean, you go in there, there's a call it a strip mall for lack of a better term, but they have a unit in there that they're renting, and there's a phone, there's a desk, there's a file cabinet, but there's no business happening here. They're
Hmm.
just having tea with their neighbor, building relationships with their
Right.
neighbors, and it was the just strangest thing. I thought maybe I was getting a bad sampling, that the people I was talking to were just the basket cases or something. But it turned out this was widespread, and they were just like, we don't know how to do this right. We're not even being encouraged to do it right. Our leaders in the mission agencies are telling us don't put too much time in that. We're discouraging them.
Hmm.
So that was a real eye-opening trip. Um, and very first publication came out of that, a paper called the Schizophrenic uh, Tent Maker. I don't know if you've ever saw that.
I didn't, but what a beautiful
Uh,
title. How descriptive,
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right. And living in
Hmm.
two
Or
separate
just,
worlds at the same
hmm
time.
yeah, yeah. The EMQ, Evangelical Missions Quarterly, back
Hmm.
in the late '90s, very first publication. But and that started getting a lot of attention. And I started going to. Well, I should mention, do a shout out for Dwight Nordstrom. I met Dwight, who
Yes.
complete opposite mindset. Here's a guy who's starting factories. I mean, just God has equipped him uniquely to not only do business, but Chinese, do it in Chinese. By the time China opened to the Western world, he was fully prepared to
Yeah.
go there,
Yeah.
and he's doing real business. And so that's, in fact, he was the one using the term Great Commission companies, the
Oh,
term
okay.
white. Yeah.
Okay.
And my co-author and I disagreed. I wanted to call the book Business as Mission. This was right around 2000 or so. And that there were other labels going around at the time. But
There's no
but
shortage
I
of labels, that's for sure.
yeah, and even now. But I liked Business as Mission, and he did not. And so we settled on Great Commission Companies as the name of the book. Uh, and yeah, so and that turned out to be the first book on this that had both theory and application. Some cases, including a Dwight story is in there.
So, just a quick comment on that for our listeners' sake. Keep me honest on this, Steve. So, I read Great Commission Companies right after it came out, the first version, the first edition of it, and it is guys. If you haven't read it, get it and read it. It's an excellent work. It's scholastically sound. It is, technically accurate. It's real business, real mission, and it's not just theory or theology. It's stories. It is, case studies of this company and that company and all over the world. I mean, in Israel, in other places, and the impact. I mean, we're talking some great companies and great kingdom impact at the same time. And then you did at least one other edition of it. It was about,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the second edition. Did some updates of the old cases and added some new ones.
Yeah, it for me it's one of the textbooks for the movement because it is based on, good research, good writing, real stuff, and there's theory in it, but it's theory applied. First of all, kudos to you, Steve, and to your co-author. It's really one of my favorites. I love it, and I recommend it everywhere I go. So for those of you who have not read it, I guess you can get it just about anywhere. Amazon's where I got
Yeah.
it. It's out there. Great
Yeah.
commission companies, and get it, read it. If you haven't, you'll learn a lot. So, Steve, when you wrote that, what was the general reception of the publishing marketplace? Because I know when I wrote my first book, called Business as Mission, ironically, it was hard to get it published. I mean,
Mm.
I felt like, a little orphan on the street. Please, sir, would somebody just publish my book? And it took years to find somebody that would publish it. Um, but what was it like? Because you were ahead of me. You
Yeah.
wrote before I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was an issue, definitely. Uh, in chapter 2 of the book, we unpack this label, Great Commission companies, and we put a definition in bullet points about 6 different criteria, and it needs to be for profit, unapologetically a real business, run by kingdom professionals, and uh, working cross culturally. This was my my co-author's influence. He's a missiologist, Tom
Mm.
Steffen. I should make a shout out to Tom. And he kept me, you know, true to the missiology jargon and so on there. But uh, we were sensitive to that question. You know, there's hundreds of books about Christian businessmen and women out there, mostly men. But you know, why another book about Christian business? And so we wanted to have a very clear answer, and it's like there's no book that talks about what these businesses are doing. This is very different, and it's a story of globalization. The original title had globalization in it, but they took it out. They thought it was too academic sounding, but it's, you know, globalization, forcing businesses of all kind to go global. And a lot of these businesses being run by Christians who are having an impact that missionaries would just, you know, cut off their left arm to have that kind of
Absolutely.
access. Yeah. So, InterVarsity Press, a very missions oriented publisher, you know, they bought into it and they published both editions.
You know, I wonder back then, Steve. I mean, I think we all felt like we were a part of something God was doing. I don't know that we would have called it a movement at that time, but we were seeing, to your point, we were seeing businesses, real businesses. That's always the first thing. It's real
Mm.
business, real profit, real product, real service, and real missional focus and impact. And packaging that all together, there weren't very many in those days. When you wrote that first edition, you and Tom, it was, I mean, I don't know how many of these there were worldwide. It's never been public. We don't know. You know,
Right.
you didn't put a fish on your business card, or you didn't put a kingdom company in your subtitle, so it was very hard to figure out who these were. But what has happened since then has really been, I venture to say, it teeters on world changing. You know, and it's not the first. So I know you're an economist by training, and obviously a business professor by vocation, and an author, and all those things. But looking at the history of it, this is not the first time in church history that business people have taken a forward position in reaching the world, right? I mean, there have been other periods of time, the Moravians, for example, and others. I mean, did those impact you? Those different sort of our forefathers, did they impact you when you were coming into this, or were you like me coming into it fresh and then later found out, wow, I'm not the only one?
Yeah. I think more of the latter. Uh, and in fact, eventually, when I started teaching a course called Business as Mission, I required some reading on the Moravians and so on. I think it's important, it's good at least for people to know that this isn't the first time and that others have done this before, and they've had some unique challenges in their own, you know, context, and not all of ours, you know, in this day and age work out perfectly either. You know, it's just,
Hmm.
and part of it is the nature of business, you know, it's, so, but yeah, I found out in time that about the Moravians and other examples. Um, yeah, in terms of the movement, if you want to call it that, uh, oh shucks, what's his name? God at Work. God at Work.
Uh,
What's his? Dave Miller. Dave Miller from Princeton. He did a study of looking back over a couple hundred years of church history, and he has seen this ebb and flow. This where it starts to really generate a lot of interest among lay people and business people in particular, and then it fizzles out. It never quite gets, you know, gets the buy-in from the church leadership
hmm
is what that's his thesis is that and I should mention that's only one chapter of his book. He, it wasn't the full purpose of his book, but
I think it's.
I
I
really
think
like it.
his point is accurate. I mean, you and I've talked a little bit about this. And I'm working on a with a team, one in Australia, one up in Massachusetts, and me, trying to dig into the why is it that the organized church as we know it is not engaged as I think they need to be. Speaking bluntly, I don't think they come out necessarily against it. Some do, But generally, it's just kind of, yeah, that's great for you guys. We're happy for you. But there's not this dynamic engagement taking place where pastors and business people and they're all working together. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Do you see that changing in the near future, or do you think it's going to be another ebb and flow situation that we'll get close almost to the brass ring of this? I always think of it as the whole body unleashed,
Mm.
where you can blow up the 80/20 rule and say it's no longer 20% doing 80% of the work, it's 100% of the body, or at least a vast majority of the body, directly engaged in discipling the nations. And we get a hope, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Do we?
I
Am I pipe dreaming, brother?
I sure hope it's different this time. I mean, just look at faith-driven entrepreneur and faith-driven investor and the Lion's Den, the things that they're doing down in Texas and Birmingham, and these are really, I mean, these aren't just academic conferences where you sit there for 3 days and you have, lunch with people that become your friends. These are really world changing, I think, organizations. Yeah, and they're taking it to a new level, I believe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious. So we'll come back into your time at Biola. You started teaching a class on it. What is the what was your sense, or what is your sense of the student body engagement and curiosity, or is it also for them kind of like, yeah, that's interesting, but I'm going into ministry, or I'm going into business? And what does the student world think of this?
Yeah, at first, on the first day of class, I would share my testimony and talk about my interest in these businesses. And it would be the glazed eye. They just didn't understand, never heard any stories about this before. And so the first couple of years or so, it seemed like it was a slow go. But eventually, we started to see. I teach introductory econ, the first courses to freshmen, and so a lot of freshmen coming in with, oh yeah, that's my parents. I grew up in China, or I grew up in,
Mm.
this place or that place, and my parents are doing that, or I know people that, and it's yeah, it's getting widespread attention. So that felt better, uh, and yeah, so I think there's more awareness of it, and it's just a matter of local churches being able to engage that and take them and shake them and help them you know uh, have the greatest impact they can have.
Yeah, when you think about it, and I know we're kind of preaching to each other, but that's what these that's what these sessions are about anyway, is that this sharing our hearts. But I know I see my local church and almost all local churches. I mean, the overwhelming majority of the people that are sitting in the congregation are working. They may not own businesses, but they are working people. They're employees, they're managers. Maybe they own a company. I mean, it's not even an 80/20 rule. It's kind of a 95/5 rule. Um, and if a church can engage that, think of the resources that get released into the ecosystem. Um, I think about the church I was in Atlanta for many, many years, and I took the pastor to Kyrgyzstan with me back
Mm.
in the early 2000s, and it was a huge blessing for him because he finally began to see, wow, because we were a bunch of business people. He said, we're never missionaries. He was amazed, but he was blessed. He was encouraged. But he turned it around, and it opened doors for him to minister to Kyrgyz believers and Kyrgyz seekers that he would have never had any other way. So it was
Mm.
everybody. It was an enormous blessing. And I see that, and I think, wow, if more churches could just get that connection. I remember, my mentor when I was in seminary was Howard Hendricks, and of course you knew Howie, and he would tell us that ministry. He was thinking primarily church ministry, but it's universal. Ministry is a lot like football. You had 22 men on the field in desperate need of rest, and 80,000 people in the stands in desperate need of exercise. And his whole point was that we could just get
Mhm.
out of the stands. And so that's kind of been my mantra for the last 35 years is, if we could just find a way to remove the barriers that business
Mhm.
people feel, they're artificial,
Mhm.
but they feel them, and they feel
Yeah.
very, very real and very uh, uh, sort of threatening almost, that you can't really get engaged because you're not a pastor or a missionary. But when you see somebody jump over that and they get on the field and they start realizing I can play this game too, it's game changer for everybody.
Yeah.
How do we help make that happen, Steve?
Yeah, boy. Uh, whenever I had the opportunity to have a pastor in a class or something like that, I mean, I would encourage them to maybe carve out some time during the week to go visit one of their business people,
Mm.
members, and see what their day is like. Spend an afternoon and see what are their challenges and what are the temptations or the frustrations that they deal with.
So
And
go to their workplace. Go see
yeah,
them where
yeah.
they. Okay.
I mean, we know pastoral visitation is common for hospitals and other contexts, and why isn't this a more normal activity? And I've heard feedback occasionally from people who have said that's been a good experience. Not everyone can go to Kyrgyzstan, I suppose.
No, not weekly anyway.
Yeah. I've been tempted to take groups to overseas, but yeah, that'll have to be in the future, I suppose.
So Steve, I'm curious when you've been like we were talking about in the beginning. You've really been right into the movement before it was a movement. And so you've seen a lot, you've learned a lot, you've contributed a lot. Not by the way, just in the books you've written, but in the classes you've taught. I know you and I worked together in the early days of the BAM Global Congress in 2013. You were in the work group out in California, helping to think through what are the issues that we all needed to address. So you've been there, and for so many years. You've seen so many things happen. uh, what do you see today? And this is a delicate question, but so I know you'll answer it honestly, but also thoughtfully. What do you see as the issues facing the movement, and obviously the church too? We never want to do this in a way that leaves the church out. Uh, to me, it's got to be together in some way. But what do you see? What are the challenges that you're looking at that make you shake your head a little bit and wonder?
Hmm. I'm in such a transitional stage of my own life. I was immersed in Biola, where practically everybody in that campus, all the academics, I mean, bought into this idea of all work, all life ministry.
Hmm.
It's not just what those few times you get to evangelize somebody. It's your whole life, and you know I started thinking, boy, this is, the whole church is really buying into this. And now I'm less confident about that. I've just been away from that environment for a year. I'm still meeting. I have to say, I don't know everything that's going on here in Pennsylvania, but it's just, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit more lonely as in terms of that. Work faith kind of discussion. So, but I get encouragement from what's happening. I know I shouldn't keep mentioning Biola, but I mean I know they have an AI center now that's really starting to, so they're looking at not just business but also this, artificial intelligence and
Hmm.
faith and how to, how can these three things kind of work together, and the faith driven entrepreneurship. I just think uh, the technology is advancing so quickly, and it's a matter of keeping the people engaged too. And so we still need pastors there, and we need uh,
Yep.
yeah.
It is interesting. I think, I kind of see over the years, I've seen a pendulum swinging, and I'll pitch this to you, and you comment on it and tell me, no, you're crazy, or you're right, or somewhere in between. So in the beginning days of what we now call business as mission, or B4T, or it has 25 different labels. Doesn't really matter. It's just integrated living. All of my
Mm-hmm.
life under the lordship
Mm-hmm.
of Christ,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just
Right.
it's really
Right.
that simple. But from the early days, those of us who were using business and walking in business, both domestically and internationally, and seeing doors open and seeing disciples made and seeing uh, closed societies penetrate in what I would say is a legitimate way, um, we were kind of the outsiders looking in to the broader Christian community. And that's not just in North America, that seemed to be a Western thing. Certainly saw it in the UK and Canada and other places. So we were kind of looking, we were outside. I say we were outside we weren't in the treehouse. We were outside wishing we could be up where everybody else is. And then I've seen the pendulum over the years where it's almost the other way around. It's almost like the businesses mission groups have become so tight and so animated and so passionate and so excited about what they're doing. You mentioned FDI and FDE and PAM Global and Business for Transformation and all of the different things. These are very, very um, energized, passionate communities. The support is incredible. The fellowship is incredible. The resources are growing. And sometimes, from my cheap seat, Steve, it looks like the church is now on the outside of the treehouse, wishing they could come in, which is just as wrong. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm looking at this thinking, okay, if we could ever, like all pendulums, if we could ever find that place where it's all working together, it would be fantastic. Uh, I don't think we're there yet. I think we have a long way to
Yeah.
go. What would you say? Um, Two questions, I guess, two parts of one question. What would you say to passionate Christian business leaders who are not feeling the support from their local church and they're just kind of out there doing it on their own? They're connected to like a C12 group or a convene group or a FDE group, or they're finding what they need so that they can serve Christ and walk with Christ in the marketplace. What would you say to them that they need to work on? And then the flip question is going to be, what would you say to pastors? What would you say to church leaders and mission leaders to they need to work on that we could hopefully get some sort of true partnership that I think would be more honoring to Christ, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with communication, I think. I mean, pastors, I mean, in their defense, they weren't trained in business and they're like, well, how am I going to help these guys in the
Hmm.
marketplace? So,
Hmm.
we have to help them get over that and just even start a conversation between these groups. And one group that you didn't mention there, but I think you may have heard some of the discussion starting to happen about the blue collar workers. That
Yeah.
a lot of this is going right up past them. We're and is talking about the CEOs and the entrepreneurs and so on, and the blue collar workers are like this doesn't apply to me, and so that's another community that we need to
What
engage in.
what a great point. You're exactly right. Um, So keep going on that, but you make a great point. I don't want to let that slide by like I didn't hear it. I heard it, and I agree
Yeah.
with you.
No, I don't know. I hate to say it. Back in those early days, I was doing conferences, I think everywhere, all over. And I don't feel well equipped for that. And it was like, why is God calling me all over the place? But there just frankly weren't that many people like yourself out there. And there was a season where God was like, no, I need you out there. But uh, these events at churches where you can just have a Dwight Nordstrom or someone, a Mike Baer, come in and challenge the whole congregation and get them to start thinking in new ways and changing the conversation instead of just you know business is great because they need the Lord in there, and you can share the gospel while you're in your cubicle. Well,
Hmm.
that's such a limited view of business as ministry. So I think, yeah, we need, and maybe, yeah, I don't know how effective online conferences are. I think I told you I haven't been a big fan of those, but that might be the way to do it. Uh,
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we do have, for example, by the time this episode comes out, it will be past, but we have coming up the BAM Global, annual summit, which what used to be in person. The original was in Chiang Mai. The second one was scheduled 7 years later for 2020, and obviously it did not happen because of COVID. And so they went in 2021, they went virtual. Everybody, the whole world went virtual there for a while, but they've stayed virtual. And I see that as a mixed bag. I see a lot of people able to attend that wouldn't, pastors, I'm thinking of one in particular, a friend of mine from Cameroon. He'll be there virtually. He can't get there physically. Many, many like that. And many business people, same way. So there's a coming together, but it's not the same. And you and I think would agree that even though we enjoy each other and we're having a good conversation online, it's pretty real. It wouldn't be the same as us sitting down, and I'll go where you are. I'll come to Hershey, Pennsylvania anytime and have a cup of coffee with you. Uh, but it's just different, right? So we are missing that. And how do we get it to be real? But so communication is vital. I certainly agree with that. And I love what you said about encouraging pastors to get out, at least some get out to where your people work. And it isn't just the CEOs. Go to, to the degree you can, go and see what your forklift operators are doing. Go, I mean, I know it's, you can't go pour steel, but you can still be there. Um, and you said something a minute ago, Steve. I just want to comment on this because I think it's vital. You went there, and I want to make sure our listeners catch it. I don't think I don't think pastors should think about, can I help somebody run their business better? Because they're not looking to a pastor. I was a pastor for 15 years and been in business with some overlap for about 40 years. And I didn't look to my pastor to help me with marketing or to help me solve a technology problem. I mean, not that they couldn't, they might, you never know. But that wasn't my expectation. What I was looking for is like, who is equipping me to walk with Jesus in the marketplace? That's, because if I'm doing that, disciple making will happen. And I think that's important for pastors listening. I hope there's some listening that nobody's asking you. And again, Steve, I'm pitching you a softball here. I want you to hit it out of the park. But nobody's asking the pastor to become a business expert. Be the shepherd to the business person, and that would be a game changer. Endorse their calling, equip their assignment, their gifting for their assignment. How would you have that conversation with a pastor that might put him at ease a little bit? Because I do think they just don't because they're fearful they'll get in the way. And I don't think we view them that way at all.
yeah. Uh, Boy, I think that's the next book you and I have to write. Yes. And one specifically for pastors,
Yeah.
and because they're needed, we we all would love to have them side by side, in this, not necessarily like you said, pour and steel, but yeah, their wisdom and encouragement. I'll share one quick story. I told you about my trucking days. I was dispatching trucks cross country, and then there for a while I was running this company that was intrastate. It was just up and down the coast of California, and and what was happening? Reagan had just deregulated the transportation industry, and so people were allowed to. We used to have to publish our rates in advance and stick to these prices. Well, suddenly it was a dog eat dog,
Mm.
and but the state of California was still regulated, and so there's all these interstate truckers competing against me, and there's no way I could meet their price, legally. And I was a new Christian at the time. I'll use that as an excuse, I guess. It shouldn't be, but I mean, I started keeping separate books, I mean, that's just how it happens. And, I would have never at that point thought of talking to a pastor, and you don't expect a pastor to necessarily have a solution for that. But it's, you know, there's a lot of challenges, a lot of ethical issues out there and challenges that, you know, we can't do it alone. We need people to help.
What a great application though, right? Because it's not, again, it's that there's the universals that go from sphere to sphere, whether you're a teacher or whether you're a pastor or whether you're an executive or whether you're a millwright, whatever those spheres may be, the life issues continue. Things like you just described, honesty, ethics. The one thing Scripture talks a lot about is unequal measures,
Yeah.
unequal weights. I mean that's an ethical issue, right? So these these issues of truth and right and wrong and morality and honesty and character, those don't stop at the factory door. Those don't stop at the dispatcher's door. Those are literally, they go through walls. They go everywhere. And that's where I do think, I think you're right on, Steve. I think that's where pastors could and need to speak more, uh, sometimes more firmly, but certainly more confidently, because the average pastor knows the Word of God a whole lot better than the average
Mm,
worker. I mean, it doesn't
mm,
matter where you spend your time. So they have insight, they have wisdom. They may not see everything rightly, but they have a perspective that we need in the marketplace. And that's my. It's interesting. I have a concern that as the business, each one of these groups is doing the same thing. That whatever group you want to pick up, I'll say the business is mission world, but fill in the blank. The more we do, quote, on our own, um, the more in danger of going off course we are because we are not engaging with shepherds and pastor teachers, prophets, whatever way you want to view Ephesians 4, who have a function, a healthy God-given function in the body. And so there's a danger of going rogue, if you will. And I've seen that. You've seen that. I still see it. I'm certainly prone to that myself. And the same time, I think that the churches, when the pastors are not engaged in the real world, and I don't mean that as an insult, and I don't want somebody to say, well, it is the real world. I mean, I'm talking about when they're not engaged in the day-to-day world of the work, um, they may not be speaking to the questions that the congregation is needing to have addressed. I remember when I left the pastorate, I was in a church in Atlanta for a while as an attender, and I remember thinking, you know, during the sermon, I didn't mean this to be disrespectful, but I remember thinking, Lord, was I this irrelevant in my preaching? And it wasn't that it was inaccurate, it wasn't that it was unbiblical or anything like that. It was just it didn't speak to the condition of the hearer. That's an old Spurgeon quote. Speak to the condition of your hearers. Well, it wasn't speaking to the condition of the hearers because we were sweating things like that. How do I deal with this inequality, this inequity in transportation rates? How do I deal with this? Versus, what is the meaning of this particular word in Hebrew? I mean, I don't make light of that, but I do think that's important.
yeah.
Um, Wow. So if you and I I've got to come to Hershey and sit down and have some coffee with you. Would be fun. We won't record it. We just make it me and you having a good time because I love you and I've always just thought very highly of you,
Mm,
even though we've never been able to carve out a whole lot of time together. We've always enjoyed
yeah.
it.
That's great.
Um, all right. So Steve, we'll start sort of coming in for a landing here in a minute, but when you look forward, we've talked a little bit about what you see, the concerns. You've brought, I think, some great insight and counsel to us. Most of our listeners are BAM practitioners or BAM supporters, but there are others. There are people that are still exploring a little bit, trying to figure out what's going on. There's pastors who listen. There's seminary professors who listen. So it's a wide group. But what the primary function is people looking and saying, I'm either in BAM or I'm considering BAM, and I appreciate what I learned from your guests. For when you look at this, what do you see coming? And I'm not going to put you on the spot as a prophet, but you've got a sense. You and I are both old enough. We've seen trends that develop lead us to certain conclusions. What do you see coming in the world of faith and work, whatever you want to call it, this whole integration thing? What do you see coming in the next decade or so?
Wow. Uh, at the moment, I'm thinking about our poor friends in China. That means a lot of people were doing BAM in
Yeah,
China, and that has just overnight become the most challenging environment between American tariffs on their products and vice versa, uh, so things are getting shaken up right now. Talk about a decade. I think even looking 5 years ahead is
yeah, yeah.
tough in this environment. So, um, yeah, AI is also that's changing the pace. I mean, I don't know. Do you feel this way? I know I sure do. That that the pace of life has just increased about a year ago or so, about 2 years. It just
Yeah,
uh, and a lot of it has to do with artificial intelligence now enabling us to do things at triple
yeah,
the speed we used to
yeah.
do. And when you do that across the board on everything, um, so yeah. And in the meantime, in terms of you talked about those cases that I've written, the people I admire most and the most honorable ones, I believe, are the ones who have a support group. They have maybe some pastors, but certainly godly people that will hold them accountable. You really need that, and especially in times of rapid change like we're going through right now, it's really important to go through it with with someone. I'm not sure if that answered your question per se, but
Well, no, it does. It's not. It's interesting. I almost hear you saying, hey guys, what's ahead is tough sledding. It's not
yeah,
going to be easy going. The road is going to be bumpy. You mentioned, two things in particular: artificial intelligence and the global politics, particularly the tensions between the United States and China. But it's true all over the world, right? Everywhere you go. I just got
yeah,
back from Argentina, and they're in the middle of some things down there. Uh, their new president, the last couple of years, Milei, trying to bring in libertarian reforms to a socialist system. They're in turmoil. This is universal, and as you say, it's faster and faster and faster to the point that I want, I don't want to go off topic, but I wonder sometimes, how do we as believers just get off this merry-go-round periodically to get our bearings? But I think so. So I hear you saying, guys, whatever it is, wherever you are in the business's mission ecosystem, uh, church side, international side, mission side, business side, wherever it happens to be, we're in for a heck of a ride. And I agree with that. I don't know I'm not Alvin Toffler and I'm not a futurist, but I agree with your premonition or your sense. So all right, so that leads me to I guess my last question for you, Steve, is what do we counsel our brothers and sisters? You said accountability. You went there. You said
mhm,
this drives up the
yeah,
need for accountability for brothers and sisters to walk with us so we're not alone. Uh, the enemy works best when we're alone. That's where he seems
yeah,
to win the most. Besides that, and that's great counsel right there. And I would say to any listener out there, if you're doing this on your own, uh, find a group to do it with. Even you don't have to live where you live, but you need people with you. Jesus sent the disciples out two by two. Paul was at his most effective when at least Timothy or Luke. I mean, he was best when the whole band was around. The one time he was alone was Mars Hill in Athens, and he was doesn't show much fruit. I don't know if that's the direct cause and effect or not. So I think your point there is spot on, Steve. What other advice, what counsel? You and I have been we've been down this road a few decades. Um, what counsel would you give to some of the younger people coming in as this is going to be their norm for a while?
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Uh, if they aren't already, and the fact that they're watching this means they may be plugged in, but connect yourself with these groups like the FDEs and the BAM Globals, and there's a lot of wisdom in there, a lot of wise people, and there's new people that good networking opportunities
Hmm.
themselves, but
Hmm.
yeah, I think it comes back to that same point though. It's specific individuals in your life that you'll need, but also specific organizations that you need to sort of cling onto and make sure you're getting the resources you need in this environment.
We just completed a survey within the BAM Global community, um, and we were looking particularly from the lens of caring for people who are doing business as mission, almost pastorally. Their life issues, not their business issues, but their life issues. And we came to, I'm going to overgeneralize, Steve, but to me it resonates with what you just said, or what you just said resonates with this. Um, we saw two big things on a sort of a four-box model. One was a degree of community that you were involved in, because aloneness was the negative, was the lowest, and strong community was the highest. And so, where are you on that? Are you lonely? Are you out there by yourself, or have you found a nurturing, equipping community that's walking with you? And the other was capacity. So one was vertical, right, from lonely to engage with people. The other was overwhelmed we use the term in control, but I don't like that because it's theologically challenging to me. We never are in control. But so that was the other was, do you have the resources you need to keep up? That's the speed thing. And do you have the people around you for the community that you need? And I think every time I'm listening to you talk and this model keeps coming back, like it's spot on. So, Steve, thanks, man. It's for those of you who weren't in the beginning. Steve and I spent 30 minutes fellowshipping together, trying to get our technology to work. I was beginning to wonder if this podcast was going to happen. But Steve, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it, and it's just good to see you and good to learn from you. For our listeners and for our viewers online on YouTube, please, if you like the episode or benefit from it, please give us a ranking. Just rate us, follow us, subscribe to us so you can keep up with it, new episodes, and tell a friend about us. We are not trying to do anything other than encourage people to hear what God is saying to the church, of getting engaged in the world by, my phrase is, by all means necessary. Whatever it takes, legitimately, whatever it takes to engage for the kingdom's sake in the world. Steve Rundle, Professor Emeritus, Biola University, still teaching. And it's great to have you teaching us today, brother. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been fun.